Hi there everyone, Jan here. Just going back to our next part of our video about to do with that, you know, the large card and gift tag box. Just picking up from the last videos, I didn't go too far with it because it was very complicated with cutting all the cardstock, etc. Now, I said that I would try to find the name of the cardstock that I used as my main cardstock, and it's this one. It's Craft UK Limited. It's size A3 and it's white linen and it's 300 grams. And this is just really good because honestly I think it's indestructible. So this is what I've been using. You can score it, you can batter it basically and nothing happens to it. So it's really good card and I like it. I don't think it's very expensive either. These are all the measurements that I said that I was going to put on my Craft Stash UK at Jan's Craft Stash UK page, and they're all up there now so that you can just you know, take the measurements from that. I did go over them as I was going in the first video, but it's a lot to take in. Right, okay, so by now you should have all those pieces cut out and scored to the measurements that I gave. Now these are the pieces for the outside box. All of the boxes are the same, so they're just smaller in size as it goes down. So it's just about, once you've got the construction for the first box, you can easily do the second box and the third box. The smallest box is a slightly bit different, and then putting the whole thing together will be like another thing. Hopefully we'll get time today, but maybe if we don't, we don't. Okay, so you should have pieces that are marked out, and I've already prepped quite a few pieces. So this is the lid, and as you can see, I've scored it where I've said to put the score marks, and then I've put on here, I've put the backing card, and then I've put the my design paper, and I've done that on each of these sides. Now another thing about this is there's quite large borders around this. There's 1/4 of an inch borders, and the reason for that is so that I could use a 6 by 6 inch pad. If I couldn't use a 6 inch pad, I'd have to take probably, well, it would definitely take a 12 inch pad, and you wouldn't have much left. You'd have a lot of scraps left over, so the most economical was a 6 inch pad, but it does mean you've got a large border. And there's two things you can do about that. You can either keep it as it is, because I actually think it's quite, you know, it gives quite an attractive finish, and also you'll be putting embellishments on it and everything anyway. Or the other thing is that you can cut an even another 1/4 inch larger piece other than your backing paper or backing cardstock, to give you sort of a second mat around it if you prefer that. But actually, to be honest with you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I quite like it like that. I think it gives a good finish, and that's the way the other box is. Right, so you had 4 pieces of this 6.5 by 7, and you needed to score, this is the 7 inch side, and you needed to score at 1/2 inch down the 7 inch side, so that when you fold that under, you've got a 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch square. On the side that you folded under, on here, on the back, we're going to put some score tape. You can use wet glue for this, but you don't have to, and for ease of doing this demo and for the speed, I'm going to use this score tape because it's just as good. It's fine, no problem with it. Let me find my little trusty acrylic block that I use to tear my tape with. Okay, let me just double check that this is actually in shot. It is, that's good. Right, so now if you remember, I mentioned before that I like on this particular project, I like my score line on the outside. Now let me see if I can kind of hold this up a bit, and hopefully you'll be able to see it, because I think it gives a decorative edge, and also it gives me somewhere to kind of place my paper and everything. So you should have 4 sheets like this now, which you have scored. So fold them under, burnish them with your bone folder, and add score tape to the underside of that. Put those aside. You should have 4 pieces cut like this that have been scored at 1/2 inch and 1 inch on these 3 sides, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, but nothing along the top. And I have then folded these under and scored and gone along all the score lines with my bone folder. Okay, so we'll be working on that in a moment. Now you should also have a square piece of card this size, which is 6.5 by 6.5 square, and to save time I have stuck one of the cutouts that I asked you to do, the 6 by 6 cutouts, onto it. Now I should say at this point that if you look at the instructions, let me see if I can find some instructions that say it. On here, on the instructions, it will say you need 2 different design papers. So you need a minimum of 4 sheets of 6 by 6. So the first one I'm calling the main design because it's for the outside of the box sides. So when you drop the box side, you know, the sides of the box outside, you'll see another box inside. Now that outside of that box is going to be your main paper, and you only need 4 sheets in the various sizes for each of the boxes. Then there's a contrast. Now the contrast I've used for the lid and also for the inside of the box sides and the pocket and the base, the floor, so that it all sort of fits together. So I've called those the contrast. So the main design in this case is this one for me. This is what's going on all the sides, and then on the inside of the sides, if that makes sense, this is my contrast paper, and it's also the paper that I'm using for my lid. Okay, right, let's see how we go. Let's see if we can get together with it. So basically, this is your 6.5 by 6 inch square base, and on top of it is your 6 by 6 sheet of paper. This piece here, this is for this one, that's going to go on there. Now this doesn't have to take much weight, so it doesn't need backing card, it only needs design paper, and it's up to you whether you cut it to the measurements I've given you or whether you add another 1/4 inch on and make the margins around it a little bit smaller. It's entirely up to you. And you're going to need 16 of these pieces, and these are the bits that are going to go down the sides and on the insides because the insides do show. Okay, right, okay, so for the first, let's get the lid done because I've already done it. So the lid size is, let me get my little notes to refer to. So you're going to need for the lid the, hold on, let me find the largest size. There it is there, that's the largest size. So this is 10 by 10 all the way round, okay? And it was scored at 1 5/8, turn it round, 1 5/8, so 1 5/8 all the way round. Now, your backing paper is your 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 piece. That's this white piece here. And on top of that is your 6 by 6 main 6 by 6 design that you're having on the top of your box and the sides of your box. And the side pieces that I've stuck on here are your 6 by 1 1/4 is the white cardstock I've used here. I'm sorry about that, that's my dogs. Sorry, 6 1/4 by 1 1/2. That's the white pieces that you'll see around here. And these pattern pieces are 6 by 1 1/4. Okay, I'm sorry about the dogs barking, nothing much I can do with them. Right, okay, so then you're going to put that aside. Don't worry about this, we're going to talk about this in a moment. So the first thing that we need to do, let's move some of this stuff out of the way. I've left this one to be done so that you know, I can go through it with you, but all the other pieces I've done. So before we start doing anything about folding this or cutting it up or anything, we're going to stick these pieces to here. So this one, this is your, this is your 5 1/2 by 3 1/2 piece. And you will have cut 4 of these, and you do this pocket 4 times. I've already done the other 3. We only need to show you once really. So you're going to score along your lines, unfold it, and then we're going to start putting it together. If you've got directional paper like I have, make sure that you keep that in mind when you stick this paper down. This bit here without the fold lines, that's the top of your pocket. Now you've got 4 of these per pocket. Okay, let me find my tweezers that I use all the time. And we are going to stick these down like this. Try to keep it level with the where you've put this. Okay, oops, that's shimmied. Right, okay, so that's piece number 1. Piece number 2. And you don't put anything on these outside pieces, but you turn it over and you put your remaining pieces on the outsides of this side. I was going to say the outsides of the inside, but hey, it's confusing enough as it is. So you just line these up where you think the ones were inside and just pop them on here. The reason I've left about just less than 1/4 inch gap, I suppose, at the top and the bottom is number 1 for economy of saving the paper, because I got more pieces out of one sheet, but also it stops the cards sticking to it or hitting it as you put them inside. Right, so now to construct this box, this is what you need to do. When you see, I'm going to hold this up again, when you look at your card that you've scored and folded, this is one of the reasons why I like the ridges on the outside. You'll see that there are score lines here. Now we're going to cut to one side or the other. Excuse me, and I'll tell you which ones. Okay, if you've got it that way round, you can still do it, but it's not as easy as it is to do it like this. Anyway, so for the first piece, and don't forget you're going to do this with all of your pockets. So 4 pockets on each of 3 layers. That's 12 pockets in all. So the first cut we're going to make is, let's call this the inside. So there's this score line here, and I'm going to cut up the inside of that score line. I hope you can see this. Right up to and just over the score line that goes across this way. Okay, what we're going to do is actually remove as many of these score lines off of this corner piece that we can. And we're going to turn it round and we're going to cut sideways up to the first score line and just over the top of it. Okay, Then we're going to cut up this part here, and on there then you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 3 score lines that we've cut off that were here and here and here. Okay, now we're going to cut this piece off and take the score line off with it, and that leaves us with this little flap with a score line, and we're going to remove that score line by mitering this corner. So you don't have to miter it by much, just the thickness of the score line, and then you miter the other side as well, just a tiny bit. Okay, so we did have this shape. That's your square. We cut up from the bottom to the inside score line. Whatever you do, don't cut this tab off. We then cut in from the side only as far as the first score line, and then we cut the bits out. So that leaves us with that shape and that tab. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to go inside this score line again, this side, because we don't want the score line. Oops, can't get my scissors to do it. Okay, to just nicking this score line here. Okay, so you cut up the 2 score lines, then you're going to turn it round, and this score line here, you're just going to cut into it to the first one. Then you're going to cut above that score line and cut these 2 pieces off, so we don't need those, and then you're going to cut this piece off because we don't need that. Now that leaves us with a flap, but we want to miter it, so the mitering on here will actually, so if we just go this side of the score line, the mitering will remove that score piece. And we'll do just a tiny piece here as well. It's not even a 1/16 of an inch, it's just a very tiny piece. Okay, so I hope you saw that. That's what we end up with. That is your basic pocket shape. Now if I were you, I found it easier to mould my pocket around something that is actually 1/2 inch deep. So I stuck a couple of post-it blocks together till it made 1/2 an inch. Right, okay, so now this is what you'll need your wet glue for. So first of all, you're going to turn over your flap, either one, doesn't make any difference. Apply some wet glue. You can actually apply tape if you want to, just I find it easier with wet glue. And you're going to bring these sides together. Now you'll see that there's a score line here, but not one here. So you're going to put this just inside this score line. That makes the neatest corner that you can do. Okay, so I hope you can see that. And you just hold it for a second or two till it starts to take. And then I'm going to put my 1/2 inch block in. I mean, you can do it without, but it's just so much easier with. And you're going to push down the side here and put the bottom one over the top of it, and make sure that that 1/2 inch block is jammed into the corner. Okay, so you need to apply a little bit of glue here, push that back in, put this one over the top, make sure that that's there, and give it a bit of a go with the bone folder to make sure that it takes. It won't take very long. I like to use wet glue here because it gives a really permanent bond. Okay, so this flap needs to go outside of this one. So again, let's do the other one. Push the flap, the small flap up, the small little tab up, cover it with your glue, fold it across inside, put your block in it, there, fold your outside edge in, push that down to hold that tab where it's supposed to be. There we go, nice square edge. Apply a little bit of glue here and hold that down for a few seconds. I hope you can see that. Let me get my bone folder, just till it takes. Trying to keep that as neat and as square as possible, because this is where the maths comes into it. All of these things interlock inside the box. Like I say, it's not at all difficult, this, it's just time consuming. Right, and that gives you your pocket. The two sides are covered because they're going to be seen, and the two inside back pieces are also covered because they're going to be seen as well. I hope you can see that. Okay, it will become more evident as we put it together. So you should now have, for each of your boxes, you should have 4 of these pockets. Okay, that look like that. Let's put those aside for a moment while we construct the base. So these are the pieces you're going to need for the base. Let me move these completely out of the way. These are the pieces you're going to need for the base. Now you should have those pieces, you know that I told you you need to score it and fold it. 1, 2, 3. There it is, the wanderer, the happy wanderer. Right, okay, so when you've scored it and you've put your tape inside, you need to add your piece of card that you cut to fit, which is this piece here. This is your backing card. Again, you can use score tape on here if you prefer. Line this up, centre it up. It's about 1/8 of an inch gap all the way round. About. There we go, just do the best you can with it. Burnish that down all the way round. There we go. And add your piece of designer series paper. Let's move that out of the way. Which is this one, because it's the outside. So if the flap tucks under, it's the outside. Okay? Right. So for mine, it's not directional. I can put it anywhere, any which way. If yours is directional, just make sure you've got it the right way up. Line this up and pop it on. Again, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch border all around this. Yeah, that's about it. Hold on, let's move it forward a little bit. That's it, that's about it. Burnish that down as well. Now on the inside, you don't need a card backing piece, you just need your designer paper, and mine is directional, so I have to be mindful of that. Remember that if it's directional, all of the pattern needs to go down. This is the bottom of the box, so everything needs to go down towards the bottom of the box, otherwise it will be upside down. we go. So I've now got about 1/4 of an inch gap all the way round because there isn't any cardstock. That's fine, because most of this is going to be covered with that pocket anyway, so that's absolutely fine. But like I say, if you want it bigger, then, you know, just cut your mats accordingly. Right, so now you've put your score tape along the bottom. What you need to do now is, along this, the bottom part here, cut this off at as close to a 45-degree angle as you can guess. Okay, and you cut off, you know, cut to just above that score line. Not any more than that. Right, now you should have 4 pieces with the tape on that look like that. A bit of tape needs burnishing. Okay, now this is the base. This is the inside of the base. So these pieces here, you now need to adhere to this. So you remove your score tape, she says. Sit it upright and carefully slide it underneath until it is as exact as you can possibly make it, and butt it up as tight as you can get it with the sides upright, perpendicular, and then press it down. Okay, and then you can burnish it. Now this is the bottom of the box, and your folds are going to be under here, and the reason we mitered them is so that they will sort of fit together without creating too much bulk. So that's the first one. Turn it round. Do the same all the way round. So this is my base. I'm going to hold it up against myself to keep it out of the way. I'm going to slide this under and get that as tight as I can to that corner, and as tightly butted up as I can to the base there, so that when those two corners come together like that, you don't see a gap. I hope you're picking up on that. Press that down and give it a burnish. Just repeat for all the corners. Do you know, I found that I put this together a couple of days ago, and I found that if you leave something with score tape on it and you don't peel the backing off, the backing kind of sets onto it and it becomes almost impossible to remove it. Right, okay, so again, you're going to line this up, stand this one up that you've just done, get this one to meet it as closely, I'm sorry if my head's in the way, as absolutely closely as you can. Push it in as tight as you can to the wall and push it down. Give it a burnish. And then the last one, the same. Stand this one up and this one if you can manage to hold it. Slide this under till it meets the sides. There and there. The accuracy with which you can do this makes a difference to the box, so don't rush this bit. Just take your time and get it as tight as you can. Now on this level only, you're going to need to stick something in here, because otherwise this box is going to rock about. On the other boxes that go inside, it won't make any difference. So that's what we've cut this piece for, this 5.5 by 5.5 piece, and that piece goes in there. Okay, and then you can either cover this with a piece of design paper or a piece of felt if you wanted to, or you can leave it plain as it is. I haven't got a piece cut out at the moment, but I probably will by the time I've put the whole box together. You don't need this on any of the other levels. Right, there we go. So as you can see, I've missed, you know, they're not quite mitered exactly the same, and that's why I will cover it, because, you know, just because it's out a bit, and it will look a little bit better, look a little bit neater, but at least it won't rock about. Right, now that actually forms your box. That's the base and sides of your box. There we go, like that. So the next thing we need to do is the lid. Now again, I would recommend this. So you take your lid, you've put on all your design papers. We don't need to put design papers on the inside, it's not necessary. Now again, we're going to cut this, so on two, pick a side, and then you're going to use the opposite side as well, because it's a square, so it doesn't make any difference. And on the inside here, we're going to cut up the inside edge of this score line until it just nicks the score line that's going across. Then from the corner here, from this outside corner, hope you can see this, we're going to cut diagonally until we meet that and take that piece off. Okay, now we're going to do the same here. So we're going to cut inside this score line till it just nicks that one. That wasn't very straight of me. Then you're going to cut diagonally and take that piece out. And let me just tidy this up, because I didn't do that very wonderfully neatly. So now the way the box is going to be constructed, simplicity itself, is you're going to tuck these tabs in. You're going to line these sides up so that there's only one score line showing there, and this bit here is level with this bit here, so that goes like that. Okay, we're going to do that on all four sides, but first of all we're going to do it on two sides first, because this is the easiest way to make the lid fit, because you need a reasonable fit, but it mustn't be so tight that it rucks up all the paper and everything. So let's get two pieces done first. So you're going to fold over your flap, apply your glue, line that up as I've shown you to there, and make that the best corner you can make, and put that, make sure that that piece there is level with the top. Now for a second I'm just going to put one of these folder clips on it just to hold it while it sets up, and I'm going to do the other side as well. Then we'll come back to this in a moment. Just going to give it time to dry. So we're going to fold that under, line it up, and make the best corner that you can, the sharpest, squarest corner you can. Make sure these two pieces up here are lined up, and either hold it or just put a clip on it for a moment or two. Now I'm just going to put that aside for a moment while that sets up, because what we're going to do then is construct the lid around the box so that you know it fits. So let's get our box back. Now this is, as I say, it's very, very simple, but you must pay attention to